Hello, and welcome to Dud and Dan. I'm Dud,
And I'm Trey.
and that is Trey, not Dan. Once again, Daniel is away from us.
I really
Still
like-
off in, Minnesota or wherever.
I really
Michigan,
like
I don't
this low-key
Yeah.
NPR-style
Uh-huh.
intro.
Yeah, I was trying to shake it up a little bit.
I
And,
consider it shook.
Show how we could be, not how we are.
Oh, I love it.
hmm
I really do love it.
You want to talk about what is it? the SNL, the ice cream flavors, like they did it at NPR, like sweet sweaty balls or something like that.
Sweaty? Peach Sweaties?
Peach sweaty balls.
Sweaty.
Sweat, yeah.
I love these.
It was Alec Baldwin, right? I think
Mhm.
played the
Mhm.
character. I don't know, and it was a recurring joke. Probably
Yeah.
what 80s? Is that 80s? 90s?
No, it's 90s.
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 Yeah.
Early 90s.
I'm not much better on Daniel on the concept of time, so I mix up decades and stuff a lot.
That's fine.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you probably weren't even alive.
Well, I was
Oh,
barely in the 80s, just the last half.
yeah.
I was there,
Okay.
so I have small memories.
I was there for almost all of it except for a month.
Ah,
I missed out on January 1980.
Ah.
Sorry,
That
January
was a good one.
1980.
so I've read.
Yeah.
Actually, I had no idea. I
I
don't know
missed
what
out
you
on a
would.
few weeks of Jimmy Carter.
Oh, okay.
I've only ever known Ronald Reagan.
Ooh. Well, I don't think that's good. if what I've heard, I don't think that's a good time.
Well, I don't remember any of it, so
Well, that's good.
yeah.
It's probably for the best.
Uh-huh.
I was reading recently. Someone posted a feed on Twitter. It was like going through every president in the history of America and everything that's wrong with them all.
Yeah.
And it was pretty fascinating.
Mhm.
Generally speaking, most of them did some terrible things,
Yeah.
which is weird.
My friend Marcus Highsmith,
Yeah.
a few years ago, decided to read a biography of every president in order.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and he's done it, and so like he is. If I have a question about a president,
hmm
I know I can ask him, and he'll have the answer. I'll be like, oh yeah, that such and such did this.
Well, he's an interesting guy because he's written, or I don't know. He has a book on Amazon.
He rewrote Benjamin Franklin's autobiography to
Yeah.
sound like someone who lives in Boston in the
Mhm.
mid 20th century. He changed the voice
Yeah, he just gave it an accent,
'Cause-
basically.
because he was cosplaying as Benjamin Franklin for a
Mhm.
while, and that was the character he was doing. He was doing him like a big White Sox fan. Not White Sox.
Red Sox.
Red Sox. White Sox of Chicago. Red Sox fan.
hmm
You
gotta
love the Sox.
I have never read the whole thing, but I've read segments of it,
Yeah.
and it's hilarious. So
Yeah,
if
it's pretty
you're
funny.
into that sort of thing, it's on Amazon. I think it's In My Own Words, something like that.
Yeah,
It's,
Benjamin Franklin
Marcus
in My Own
Highsmith.
Words by Marcus Highsmith. H.Y. Smith.
Yeah, and it's I think got a picture of him dressed as Benjamin Franklin on the front.
I did that Photoshop.
Yeah,
I
that doesn't
I
surprise
took a
me.
photo of him, and then I made it.
You made it kind of look like the
goo
dollar
morphed
bill
it. I
or
goo
whatever.
morphed it to fit the $100 portrait.
$100. Yeah,
Yeah.
I knew he was on.
Actually, I took it's his face,
yeah.
and then I morphed the Franklin illustration, like etch lines and everything, to
Yeah.
fit his face. So
Yeah. It's pretty.
Yeah.
It looked pretty good if I remember right. My
it's
memory
not bad.
served.
There's a little couple of bobbles on his eyebrows that I wish I had more time to fix. But
Oh, wow, yeah.
he was like, "It's perfect. Just give it to me." I'm like, "Okay." Fine.
Yeah. Well, Marcus is a character.
We're talking about books. This is an NPR show.
I know we've changed I opened the show differently, and the whole thing changes. It just set the tone, and now
Yeah.
we're being educated. I'm reading a biography right now, actually,
Mhm.
because as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, I got a little obsessed with the Alexander Hamilton, or the musical Hamilton, and then I started reading the biography that it was based on, and it's good. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. So I'm in
there
a weird
are a lot of
headspace.
interesting things in the In the Hamilton. So which side of the sex scandal does this book come down on?
I don't know. I haven't got to that part yet. I'm only a quarter of the way through
because some scholars say it probably actually was a financial scandal, and they used the sex scandal to cover up the financial scandal. Because there's certain evidence that they would assume.
Yeah.
And some of the evidence sounds like it was made up a little bit. It's like some of the letters between Hamilton and his mistress sound like a rich guy pretending to write like an uneducated woman.
Interesting.
Yeah. So when you get there, but depending on which book you read,
I'm still in the part I'm at. For those who have seen the show or read the book, I'm about a quarter way through it. They just finished writing the new Constitution. And so that's where I'm at. It's really interesting. Obviously, the show, massaged the story into.
Right, well, you got to make a good show.
Yeah, exactly. And
it has a lot of the history, the story of the man has a lot of good television moments in it. So
yeah. There's enough true in the actual play that the stuff that isn't true is not that big of a deal. And mostly it's just kind of like the kind of love triangle thing really didn't exist in real life. It was just kind of a flirtation thing as far as the letters go between his wife and her sister. But in the play, it plays like there's a big moment between the three of them, and that didn't really exist. But
does Peggy get any more screen time in the book?
No.
Sorry for Peggy.
She's mentioned, and at least so far, she's mentioned once, and there's an excerpt from a letter Hamilton writes to her, and it just seems like he has a really good relationship with all the siblings, so it's just like, that's why it doesn't really translate as far as real life for the Angelica and Eliza trio thing, but because she was already married by the time they met, so it was weird. Anyway,
Dan is gonna love this.
Oh yeah. He still hasn't watched the second half.
I know, that's why he's gonna love this so much. Come
on, it's not that long. And Ham made a good point. He said, because we were texting about it, and he goes, yeah, it's good. And then he said, we were talking about, because Daniel was like, it's so long, and then. But in-game is longer, and we sat through it in one sitting. It's just not that big of a deal.
No.
But anyway.
The run of this show is longer. Like, this show's been going for 4 years. That's way longer than Hamilton.
Yeah, but that's true. That's true. Our last episode was half the length of...
Dan has sat through all of them, except 2.
Yeah, now. And our last episode was the same length as half of Hamilton. So... it's really not that long. If you listen to this week and last week, it's a little shorter than Hamilton is. So
Dan, I hope you love this show as much as we love you.
Yes. They've been mocking me a little bit, and they sent me a picture of a T-shirt with King George on it, and it's the line, the da da da, that part all written on it. And I was like, oh, it's a nice shirt. It's not the character I would want, but on a T-shirt. And they're like, but you like Hamilton. I was like, that is true. I do like Hamilton. Anyway, I did not expect us to talk about that.
Have you been playing any games?
I have been playing a game, and so last Sunday, actually, right after we recorded last week's episode, I was texting with Ham and Rob, and we were talking. Ham was telling us about the Xbox Game Pass. Are you familiar with this?
No.
So it's like
in a while.
Their subscription game service.
Okay, so PlayStation has PlayStation Now. Is it the same kind of thing?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. But it's only $1 right now for a month. So he was like, we could play some stuff on air, and because we've been looking for something that we could play 4 players because our little group needed something new to play, and we kind of got burned out on all our normal stuff. And he was like, we can get this and play Sea of Thieves, which is a pirate game that's been out for a little while.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. It does look fun.
I've been playing it all week. I really like it.
My favorite part of the Assassin's Creed, where you're a pirate in the Caribbean, like freeing slaves and everything, are the ship battles.
Yeah.
So I think I would like
I think you would like this game
Yeah.
too, because it has a lot of similarities to like.
And the whaling, I like the whaling.
Whaling. There are creatures in it, and we haven't done any kind of like trying to catch the giant shark thing yet. But they have shown up and try to eat our ship, and we just run away and shoot cannons at them. But so the whole game, for anyone who doesn't know, is it's a multiplayer open world game, kind of vein of like Destiny, except it's pirates and it's a little different. Like, so Destiny has the open world where there's people running around that you don't fight each other in
It's
Destiny.
PvE.
It's PvE.
Unless you
so
go specifically to a PvP.
yeah, that's the
game.
difference. Is in the Sea of Thieves, it's all PvP. Well, it's not all PvP. There's PvE, but the people can attack each other just openly. There's no like there is a arena you can go and specifically fight each other, but the open world is if you see other pirate ships, you can just rob each other, destroy each other's ships and stuff. And in fact, we avoided people as much as possible because of that. Some of the ships are they're very good at attacking you, and it gets crazy pretty quick. The difference is, the other difference between like Destiny and all that is you don't have gear that you keep. Well, you have a set of gear that everyone has, and the only real changes is aesthetics. So all the stuff you get in the game just changes the way your guns look, or your how you're dressed, or you don't even get to pick how your character looks. You get like a group of random selected wheel of characters, and then you just pick the one you like the most, and then you can change their hairstyle and beard and all that stuff. And so basically, you start the game is basically how you're gonna be for the most part. You don't get like upgrades of equipment or anything. You just change the way you look, and you just get better at playing the game, which is interesting. I am curious how that will play out long term. After a while, it's like, oh, it'd be nice if I had something better. But
that's for your character. I assume that different ships play differently.
There's 3 ships. They range in size. There's the I had the names here. The sloop, which is the smallest one, and it can hold 2 players. But you can pretty well manage it with just 1. So I was running around playing by myself with just that, and I had no trouble using it. And now, of course, if you're parked at an island exploring the island, someone comes along, there's no one protecting your ship. So, a risk you take. And then there's the brigantine, which is the second one, the medium-sized ship, and it can hold 3 people, but can also be managed with 2. And then the galleon, which is the biggest one, it can hold 4 people. And we can do it. You can do it with 3.
You have to worry about things like hold size when you're grabbing treasure, because galleons are famously like for their hold size, being able to hold a lot of.
You can. There's
gold.
more space for sure, but it's really not like a. I mean, most of the items you can just cram anywhere, so you can just leave it on your deck if you want to, and you really don't want to have too much on you, because
someone can take it.
People can take it, and they can see that you have it. Because if you look like across the horizon, especially at night, you can see ships moving along. And if you have your lantern on, they'll glow like yellow or orange color off in the distance. They can see you. But also, depending if you have like high-end treasure, like sapphires or rubies and some of the stuff you find that are really valuable, they can see that on your ship too. So you'll see like a little blue dot on the ship, and you're like, they got some good stuff. And you see a lot of colors on it. You're like, I'm going to go after them. So it kind of paints a target on your back. So you kind of have to be like, push that. Like, you want to run around, do a bunch of stuff. Yeah. Once you get like a point where you have a lot of valuable stuff, you want to go sell it off and get rid of it. Or otherwise, you kind of paint a target on your back, which is interesting. Another interesting mechanic is you can't hold treasure. You can only hold 1 treasure at a time in your hand. And when you're holding it, you can't use a weapon or anything, a sword or anything like that. So if you're carrying an item that you really want, a valuable item, you got to get to your ship and put it down before you can fight. Otherwise, if someone shows up and tries to attack you, you have to put it down and fight them. And so it's an interesting mechanic because your treasure is pretty much always at risk. and if they sink your ship, all your stuff floats up to the water, and they start stealing your stuff. It's a lot of fun because the whole thing is structured in. There are several factions or groups in the game that you get missions. They're called voyages, and you go up to them and you get the voyage, and you start with nothing. Like you go to there's one called the Gold Hoarder that you're just searching for treasure, and the first stuff you get is like you maybe get 100 gold or something like that, which sounds like a lot of money, but it's not. When you start with like 20,000, and it takes a while to like the more value item is like 2,000 gold, and well, as you do mission for it, you level up with that character. So you rank up, and kind of like in Destiny, you rank up within your faction. You rank up, and then every 5 levels, you get better missions, basically, and you get richer rewards and longer stuff. And it's pretty good. And then there's also like some faction where you pick a team and you can brand a flag for it, and it marks you, and you get bigger reward, but also people can see you and will attack you more, and they get rewards for killing you or sinking your ship. And then but it also has like some of the freemium stuff where it's like, well, it's not freemium, but the different currencies for buying other stuff, and you get 2 of them in the game, and one of them costs real money. And again, most of the stuff you buy is just aesthetic, so it's not like you're hindered by not paying money into it, unless you just like a specific item look.
I'm a big fan of the pirate genre when it's done well.
This one is done well. And the sailing is really good because you have to. You can adjust. You have to raise and lower your sail, which determines your speed basically, and then you can angle it. Because you can see the wind, so you see like the wind, little stripes in the air that shows you what direction the wind's blowing, and you have to angle your sail to get the full power of the wind. And sometimes it's against you, so you
have to tack, go up and
it makes it very difficult. Like, oh, we need to get to that island over there, and the wind blowing against us, so you kind of set the sail as best you can, but you're going to be going slower than. Normal. And then obviously the bigger ships are faster because they have more sails. So the small ship only has 1, and then 2, and then 3. But you also have to have more people to manage them because it's really well balanced. So like it's really easy to run around by yourself with the small ship and do everything yourself, switching between all the little duties. And then as you get bigger, you have to have more people, or otherwise it's just difficult to. I tried to do the medium ship by myself for a little while I was waiting for Ham and Brom to join me, and it was doable but very difficult.
So that brings up an interesting sort of answer to the problem of like games, a way to encourage teamwork in a game, but also not discourage solo play. So it seems like they've kind of hit on something kind of neat there. It would be nice if they could do the same thing, and I don't know if maybe one of the highly realistic space simulators that are out right now that I'm not really into handles that, but it'd be interesting if someone was doing that with the space genre, where the giant
spaceship kind of thing.
Giant, frigates and carriers actually needed multiple people to operate them. Because like in
like EVE Online, you have one person
for every ship.
Yeah.
But what you get out of multiple people is you get a bigger fleet, which that's helpful. And each ship, and some of the small ships can do things that the big ships can't. So, but to just even take a ship out of orbit and like fire the cannons at the same time that you're steering would be interesting.
Yeah, like a space kind of Star Trek crew. And they have some games like that, but they tends around like you have to have 4 players to play. It doesn't scale most of the time.
Right.
You
could do it in space because you could do the same thing. You could have a small ship that you could run by yourself.
Yeah.
But then the larger ships you have to have a team for.
Yeah.
That
Well,
sounds
and the
fun.
design of the ship is that way. Like, obviously, they designed the small ship to be all the stuff is kind of in one spot.
Mm-hmm.
So you have, like, on the small ship, the anchor, the sail adjustment, and the steering wheel are all right next to each other. So you can run between them really quickly. Whereas the second ship, the anchor is all the way at the front of the ship, and then you have the two sets of sails, so you can control the back sails, but you can't control the front sails quickly. And then also the map placement, which is how you see where you're going, is very different. So on the small ship, you run down one set of stairs, and there's the map right below you, and it takes 5 seconds to go to it. Whereas the bigger ship, it's on the second level, but it's all the way at the front of the ship, so you have to go down the stairs and then all the way up to the front to see it. And then on the last ship, it's even further, just because the ship is bigger. And it makes
I like that. It's, rather than giving you a HUD,
Mm-hmm.
you actually have to interact with the world.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, yeah. And it's really well done, really fun to play. And it's not complex. It's just, it really is like, you can look at when we first did it, we were terrible. There were 3 of us running around the ship, on the medium ship, and we had really no clue what we were doing. We were just like dropping the sails and going, not realizing, we adjusted, we can turn the sails and get the wind right. And to now, it's like I can do the small ship really efficiently by myself now, just because I've played it enough to where I'm good at it. And I'm good at, because you're also gauging and like, okay, we're coming to this port, gotta let the sail up right, so you can still moving, but you don't want to go too fast, so you can drop the anchor, because if you drop the anchor while you're moving too fast, it damages your ship. Then it's just fun, and damage to your ship will cause holes, which starts flooding, and so you have to have materials for fixing it, and then you if there's a fire, you got to go get a bucket. You have a bucket, so you go scoop up water, put out the fire, and there's just always kind of mini-ish games that are all just crammed into this boat, and it's simple but fun. And then, not to mention all the little things, the little missions and stuff you just either come across exploring the world, or you get the mission and go to islands and find different things. And there are different ways to make money. And I spent like 4 hours playing by myself yesterday, and running around. I was doing really well, and there were these things called there's this faction called the Reapers something. They're in Reapers hideout is the island, but I think it's just called the Reapers. And they have Reapers chests that just randomly show up on the map that are just marked where anyone can see them, and you can actually see a light shining on them, and you go to them and get it. And they're worth like this special currency generally, the regular one. Well, but when you get it, everyone sees it. Like, they can see it on the map, and when you put it on your ship, they'll see it's moving and know that someone has it, and then you run the risk of people attacking you, which is pretty interesting. But it also has more rewards, because they have a I don't know if it's another tier of that chest. It's like a yellow version of it that is worth 10,000 gold. And I made more gold in like a 30-minute hour play than I did than the 4 hours I was playing with Rob and Cam the night before, just because I got that chest and no one messed with me, which I was surprised by. But then there's like, I was doing a treasure map, and I dug up a special chest called a sorrow chest, which I'd never seen before. I was like, oh, that's a weird looking. It's got a face on the front of it. I was like, oh, that's weird. I put it on my boat. It starts crying and flooding my boat. And I was like, oh. And I had it down in the hold, and I was like, oh, that's not good. And my water starts rising in there. I was like, no. I took it out. And I was like, okay, maybe it just needs to be outside. So I sit on the deck, and it didn't cry. I was like, okay, we're fine. So I got the water out of my ship. And then I was like, well, I had another chest I had to get from the island. So I hopped off the boat, went to get the chest. I came back, and my boat just topples over. And turns out, no, it just started crying again while I was gone and sunk my ship. So I lost all the treasure I had and had no way to get back to port with the stuff. Because once you lose your ship, you can teleport to a new ship, but it takes you to a different island, random island somewhere, and you don't have any of your items that were on there. So you essentially lose it all unless you get back to the island and get your stuff before, I guess, it despawns or whatever. And
is the map randomly generated, or is it based on...
It's a set map.
Mm-hmm.
So all the islands, everything, but the stuff on it, the creatures on it and all that stuff is kind of procedural. And sometimes you'll show up to an island, it'll just be a little random, easy skull guy. But then you might get like a harder enemy just pop up. But there's also a group, there's something, I think it Order of the Soul, something like that give you missions to just go to islands to fight the stronger skeletons, and then you get their skull, and that's worth money, and you trade that in. They go up. That kind of thing, along the same line as the treasure hunters. And I don't know how many of these factions there are. There's at least 5 or 6 that I've seen, and I know that's not all of them, because there's some... those are kind of the general ones you just do stuff for, and then there's some clan-based ones where you join this group and you rank up. The Reapers is one of them, and then some of the other ones, and you get reward, I think, for sinking other ships. I don't know. We haven't gotten to that part too much yet, but as we get better at the game, I'm sure we will be exploring that. I think I covered everything I wanted on that, because... But Sea of Thieves, it's pretty good, and it's well worth the game Xbox Game Pass to get it, because right now it's only $1 for the first month, and then it goes to $5 a month from there on, and then you get access to a ton of other games, a bunch of the Halo games, pretty much anything that's made by Microsoft you can play for free with the subscription.
Right.
And then the Gears of War, there's a bunch of the Gears of War, the new Minecraft Dungeons games on there, No Man's Sky's on there, and then starting September 1st, they'll have Crusader Kings 3, which Daniel will be playing because he likes Crusader Kings, which is a brand new game, but if you're paying a subscription, you can just play it for the $5 a month. Which I think is a temporary price. I think it's normally $10. I don't know how long the $5 price is going for, but now's a good time. It's pretty good. I was I should have gotten this a while ago. It's for $5 a month. That's less than I'm paying for PlayStation Plus, and I'm only getting a free game that I don't play every month. But if you had a PC, I'd get you to get into it, because I think you would like it. You can join our crew.
Yeah.
We'll kick Daniel out.
Sounds like my kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, what we should do if I had, this is all hypothetical because I'm not really a PC gamer, but I could play and then I could come and kill Daniel and join your crew.
That sounds good. I like this plan. Good thing Daniel won't be listening to this episode, because he's not in it, and he's like that.
He's like, I only listen to the ones.
Of course, he doesn't listen to the ones he's in either. So I don't know what that says in general. I told him he has to listen to the episode because he's the one putting it together and editing it. So he's got to make sure it all goes right.
He's got to make sure I don't say any swears.
No, we don't censor anything.
Oh, well, I guess I could say some swears then.
You can.
Some gentle cusses.
Gentle. Yeah, we say a lot of obscene things on this show regularly. And in fact, I don't even remember what we say, so I mark every episode as explicit whether we said anything or not.
I won't be sending this episode to my mom then. So.
Do you send other episodes to your mom?
Well, I like to show off the work I've done. She's proud.
Hey, I'm on this podcast,
I was on a podcast
that has very low viewership and no money.
But whoops. There were some cusses, so I guess please don't listen to it.
My mom doesn't listen to the show.
Okay.
I told her, she'll ask me what we talk about sometimes, but she don't care. And I don't expect her to, and that's okay. What'd you play this week?
I played Adventure Time Card Wars.
Yeah, you billboarded that last week.
I flooped it.
You floop the pig?
Flooping is a mechanic in the game.
Oh, it's not exclusive to pigs?
It's not exclusive to the pigs. You can floop a lot of things. You can floop, but you can't floop everything. Some cards may be flooped. The pig is one of them.
Of course.
But
anyone who doesn't want Adventure Time
flooping
won't be getting a reference right now.
Yeah, so to back this up, back in like 2012 or whatever, Adventure Time did an episode called Card Wars, and Jake wants to teach Finn how to play his favorite game, and it's a send-up of Magic the Gathering, and I mean the entire show of Adventure Time is kind of a send-up of Dungeons and Dragons anyway, but it's got some of that D&D ness in it, but a lot of it hinges on an experience that's kind of universal for anyone who's ever gotten into gaming, and very much mirrors my original experience with Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
And that you get someone who's really excited to find someone new to play with, and they want to talk them into playing the game, but they're so far ahead
they just crush them
on the learning curve of the game that there's like no way that you have any hope of being good at the game, and then you have a horrible experience and you just don't want to play anymore, which is how I handled Magic the Gathering. So my sister...
I have the same experience, but not with Magic. It was with Netrunner.
Yeah.
Because our buddy Josh and Gary were into it, and they got me and Dan to play, and then they just, like, the whole game just told us how to play, and then I still lost. I was like, oh, that wasn't fun.
Anytime I play someone in a game like that new, I intentionally try not to make it obvious that I'm encouraging their play to win, and I also try not to make it. I try and make a bunch of unforced errors that are plausibly unforced errors. So I'd be like, oh man, I should have done this. Oh, I missed that. Now you're up, kind of thing. So I like just because my Magic the Gathering experience was so bad. So my sister got really into it in the early to mid 90s, and she had like this big card collection. Although, like, if I was talking to her the other day about it, and she's like, yeah, I wasn't really into it. I'm like, I shot her the look, and I'm like, you weren't really into it? You had like 2 shoeboxes full of these cards. But then I thought about it, and I'm like, I guess maybe by Magic the Gathering standards, that's not really into it, because...
See, I could... Daniel's the same way.
When
Daniel
you meet someone
had like a big box
who
filled
is really into it, they've got like an entire shelf of shoeboxes full.
Yeah. Yeah, it's no small thing.
Yeah.
Like, Daniel was only sort of into it, and he played in junior high, and he didn't have a whole lot, and there was other people that had a lot more and were more seriously into it.
Well, I watched this game dev conference lecture with the lead designer of Magic the Gathering, and he was just talking about like designing games, because he's
the same guy did Keyforge.
Yeah, and the original Netrunner, and tons of games.
Yeah.
Hive Mind, I think, is his latest one. It's the one where you're all trying not to get kicked out of the beehive by the queen.
Oh,
it looks fun. I'd like to get a copy of it.
And we talked about Keyforge. Keyforge was his response to people playing Magic the Gathering, because they were just build these ridiculous, massive decks that, and depending on if they would get metagame it, basically. Right. And he wanted to make a game that just avoided that altogether, and just like, here's your deck, play with it.
But the number he dropped, and this YouTube video, which is several years old, but the number he dropped is over 20,000 different cards. 20,000 different cards. There's... Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Because the game's been going for, almost 30 years.
Yeah.
Almost. That's just mind-blowing. So she
popular.
had hugely popular. It's the only reason our local game store is in existence, because they do Friday Night Magic, and the parking lot is always packed. Because when I go in there if it's not Magic, they probably don't necessarily have it. They do a lot of like tabletop wargaming stuff too.
Yeah, they tried to get us to record our show there when we went in there one time, but we haven't gone back since they don't carry Fantasy Flight.
Yeah,
games.
they got beef with Fantasy Flight.
I don't get it. It's just like there's so many good. Yeah. Okay, whatever. We've been on that before.
It's hard to be in retail
Yeah. In general, but yeah.
and have a good relationship with distributors and stuff like that. But yeah, and that's it's their store. They cannot
and
be
they do what they
independent
want.
reasonably. That's fine. But also, like, it feels like they're leaving some money on the table because
I think
guys
so. I
might
think
have-
they are because I know we would go there more often. We would have, especially when
they have a nice selection of D&D
Destiny
minis.
was in top.
Yeah.
We would have if they had just carried the Star Wars Destiny cards regularly. We would have come in there at least once a week and bought a few cards, a few boosters regularly, because that we were, especially when we were 2 years ago, we were really into it, but they just wouldn't carry it, so we were like, okay.
Their little minis
Mm-hmm.
and plastic and stuff like that are actually very reasonably priced
Oh, okay.
compared to what you could buy online, and then you can actually like look at what you're getting and see
nice.
if you like it. So I try and go look there first if I'm looking for like a D&D mini or something like that.
I need to see if they have like Guild Ball stuff there. I don't remember seeing it the last time I was there.
I know they've got Warhammer and they've got all of those other things that I'm not particularly into. But anyway, so Magic the Gathering is huge, and my sister talks me into playing it, and I sit down and I'm like, okay, show me the rules. She shows me the rules, and like Synergy proceeds to just like trounce me like completely, and I'm like, I had absolutely no chance.
Of course, yeah.
Of playing this. One, I got like landlocked or something and had a hand of nothing but lands, or I had like a hand of I never saw a land, so I couldn't play it. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, see, I never played Magic, so I don't know the stuff of it. So I understand the game.
You have creature cards, and very basically, and there are other cards. There are spells, and there are other things. But you have creature cards, but you cannot play them unless you have some of your land cards out on the table. And every creature costs a certain amount of land cards. And you have to be able to spend the land cards, which you do by tapping.
I'm familiar with tapping.
which apparently Wizards of the Coast, that's the game, right? Not WizKids. I get WizKids and Wizards of the Coast mixed up. It's Wizards of the Coast, right?
That does Magic?
Yeah.
Wizards of the Coast. They do Magic and D&D. And
so Wizards of the Coast is litigious, like in a big way, with the cease and desist letters if your game uses the word tap to mean rotating a card sideways to signify that it's been used.
I didn't know that.
Now,
they call it something else in Keyforge.
Yeah, which is I think where the Adventure Time floop, I think that's what they're mocking. In fact, it's definitely what they're mocking.
Okay, because they can't say tap, so they're just like,
right. Well,
our word will be floop.
yeah. So, Wizard of the Coast has history of sending cease and desist letters to game makers who case law states that you can't copyright the mechanics of a game. You can't copyright the actual rule set of a game. Yeah. But apparently you can copyright certain language in it, and you can copyright any sort of art assets and any sort of official character names and things like that. But you can't copyright the act of rotating a card
but
to
you can copyright
signify
the word
that you used it,
used
but you
to
can
describe.
copyright the word tap, or whether it's copyrighted or not. Magic of the Gathering has so much money they basically win the settlement, whether because any other game maker who goes up against them is too small to fight it.
Yeah.
So
back to Card Wars.
So Card Wars does a very good job of dealing with the whole landlock problem.
Okay.
And that is that everyone has 4 lands at the beginning.
Okay, so you start with it.
You start with your 4 lands, which basically the show Card Wars had that. They had like these 4 rows of little land, right? So Finn had his blue lands, and Jake had his cornfields. Yeah. And there were 4 strips, so either like one side puts out 4 cardboard squares and the other side puts out 4 cardboard squares. If you want to play a creature, you have to have the number of lands in front of you that it costs, basically. So no, you could never play anything more than 4, and I don't think there's any cards in our deck that were more, well, without getting too complicated, everything, your actions are tied to kind of like your amount of lands. So you have 2 actions every turn, and some cards cost 1 action to play, some cards cost 2 actions to play, some cards are free. Okay. But whatever your action says, and it'll have an icon of your land. So if you've got a blue land card, you have to play it. you can play it if you've got blue lands. You don't have to play it on a blue land. You could have 2 blue lands and 2 useless swamps. You could have some icy lands and some cornfields.
So it's kind of a pool that you can do, but you don't have to put it on that specific
if
resource.
you're going to, because we bought the Marceline versus the Ice King deck. Mm-hmm. So you could buy these hero decks that come with 2 pre-made decks that are supposed to be fairly balanced, that you could play against each other instantly. They're already set up. You don't even have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But then if you wanted, you could have bought these booster packs. Now, the game's more or less out of print. You can still get stuff online, but you can't get everything online. But you can still buy like a whole box full of the little boosters and unwrap like 9 cards at a time and get some foils and some rares or whatever.
I keep thinking about doing them for Star Wars Destiny because they're still out there and they're pretty cheap now. But I'm not playing it, so it's hard to
if once a game is gone, man, if you have any inkling that you might want it in the future, you should get it now. You need to get onto it right after the wave of, as soon as they announce that it's quitting.
It's already been announced for a year.
Everyone starts like selling their stuff, and then you got to wait for that market to go down, and then you buy it because it will never get lower than that point.
Well, yeah,
then
it will just
go up from
goes
there
up
because
from there from
the
the
supply
collector
starts
side
to
of it.
the supply starts to dwindle. So if you are interested in playing Star Wars Destiny in the future,
I have
with
a
friends,
whole bunch of it, and the last time I bought a set was over a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years now. Mm-hmm. I spent some money on it, and then I didn't play it anymore. And but once it went on, they stopped printing a year ago. The prices dropped, and I was like, I need to buy into it. Well, I had a baby, and I couldn't do it. So I need to go back and see if there's word.
Yeah.
See if it's still cheap. But anyway.
Yeah. So it's a very simple card game. Mm-hmm. You're trying to kill the other person. Yeah. Each person has 25 hit points, and you got little counters, and every time you get hit, you remove one. And that's it. And each creature does an amount of damage. Mm-hmm. The only way that you can hit the person sitting across from you is if you have a creature in your lane that's attacking, and they don't have a creature in their lane stopping it. So you basically are trying to lay creatures out in your lanes
to protect them.
To protect you, but also you are trying to attack. So basically you're trying to get rid of the creature in their lane so that you can attack. You have a clear lane to attack. And then once you attack them, it's gone. And then you put little tokens on your creatures based on how much you have attacked. Mm-hmm. So each creature has health. Much like Magic the Gathering, when 2 creatures fight, they both hurt each other. Yeah. And eventually every creature you play is going to die. Mm-hmm. The mechanics are kind of built in, but that means that you can keep playing cards. Mm-hmm. And then you can put buildings behind the lands that support and do different things to the creatures, and then you have spells that you can play. Mm-hmm. And it's a fun little game. Cater really likes it, and he's my 11-year-old. The language on the cards is very easy for like a kid to get. Mm-hmm. None of the mechanics on the cards are like wacky. Yeah. It's very much it's very digestible for a younger audience, which I think is definitely something they were going for. But still, it's mechanically interesting. Yeah. Like there's these Marceline's deck has these 3 chickens. There's a furious chick, a furious rooster, and a furious hen, and they do no damage. They have
I've watched a lot of the show, and I don't remember any chickens in it, but maybe
they have a 0 attack. Okay. But the chick has a 5 defense, which is basically its health.
So it's basically just a shield.
The rooster has a 7 defense, and the hen has a 10 defense. But their little power in the text says for every damage that they take, they have +1 attack.
So they get more powerful the more they
take. Sit there as a shield.
They soak damage.
And then eventually they get more and more powerful every time you do it. Okay. But then there's a building in the game that you can play behind them, and it's called like the Auto Plucker. And it's like a picture of these chickens going through like a conveyor belt and coming out the other side missing all of their feathers. And you can either heal or damage the creature on your land for 1 point. So
you can kind of hurt your own chickens
Right.
to power them up, basically, to attack.
Or heal them to bring them back, because of course if
Eventually
they get
they'll
hit,
die.
eventually they get die. Yeah, so you can. So that's
that's interesting.
not a super difficult mechanic to understand, but it is an interesting little synergy, right?
Yeah.
None of the cards are useless because you're still defending.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the chick doesn't have a lot of health,
Yeah.
that'll still buy you like a couple of
damage.
rounds.
Oh, yeah.
Being hit by
5 points
another creature. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you get the building, it's awesome because you get the building, and the building isn't exclusive to working with the chickens. It'll work with any creature card. So like none of the cards are bad to play.
Okay,
They're all
so you don't
useful.
run into the problem of, well, this card's good, but I need these cards to make it work.
Right.
It
The
just-
building doesn't say anything about chickens. It says any creature,
Nice.
but it's just themed with the chickens.
Yeah, it's obviously they designed it
Yeah.
to go with that, but you don't have to use
Right.
it. That's cool.
So there's a ton of stuff like that, and we enjoyed it enough. So I played it with my son. I played it with my wife. We had a good enough time that I enjoyed. I ordered 2 more of the little hero
Oh,
packs
nice.
that are
Okay.
left. So,
So
we'll
you're
have
buying in more.
we'll have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll have like 6 decks.
Nice. You have enough. You could do. Everyone gets a deck and do a little tournament.
Yeah.
You have to bring it over some point so
I
I
will.
can play it because I'd like to
I
check
will.
it out. 'Cause I'm a fan of the show, and so
If you
there's
like,
at least
there are so many good silly little puns.
Yeah.
Cater, that was his favorite part, is like pulling up the card and just he would just like draw it and then he would just start laughing and it would be some stupid pun.
yeah.
Like
Kid likes a good pun.
Yeah. Emperor Penguin has a picture of like a little penguin sitting on a throne.
Mm-hmm.
Reindeer has like a picture of, it's REIGN, deer, has a picture of a deer with a little crown.
Mhm.
So everything's very like Ice King,
Yeah.
Ice Crown
Yeah.
type
The
of thing.
royalty, all the
Yeah.
theme. Yeah, because they do 2 Card Wars episodes, I think, if I remember right.
There's one with Fiona and Cake,
Yeah.
right? Or
Well,
not.
there may be 3 of them, actually. Because I do remember, because there's the first one where it's Finn and Jake
Mhm.
playing, and then later I think there's one with Marceline. But I may be misremembering. It's been a while
That
since I
could
watched
be right.
the show.
I think there's at least 2 episodes.
There's at least 2, I know for sure. Because there's a Card Wars 2,
Mhm.
if I remember. But yeah. Huh. You'll have to bring it over
I
and
will.
I'll play it because I'd like to try it because it's one of those things that they did in the show that's like, oh, there's no way this would work in a real game, but
There, like a lot of the show stuff, like
not actually.
no,
Yeah.
there. Well, obviously, because in the show they have like little holograms running around
Mhm. Oh
across
yeah,
the board,
you don't have any of that.
and that's obviously not going to work. But even then, there's a lot of stuff happening in the show that doesn't happen in the game, and it's smart because if
Yeah.
it did happen in the game, it would be
It'd be
incredibly difficult to keep track of all the rules.
And most time when you have a game based on a game in a show, it's
Mhm.
better to just make a game that works than to try to make it fit the show.
Right. I think of like show themed games that I've played, this one and Battlestar Galactica
Yeah.
are probably the best at being themed.
Are you
to
talking
the
about
show.
the miniatures Battlestar or
No,
the
the hidden rolls.
the hidden roll one? Yeah. Okay. Because I know there was a miniatures for it. I never played it, but I played the hidden roll
The hidden
one.
rolls
That
one
was
is
really
is a
good.
really good
Good take on
themed
that
game. So like, because we played Game of Thrones
Yeah.
at your house,
Well, there's a.
and that was an intense slog. If you
well,
like,
the-
I like a good crunchy, heavy rule board
Mhm.
game, but Game
Well,
of
the
Thrones
Game of Thrones
is
one-
so
That's based on
heavy.
a similar mechanic to like diplomacy.
Yeah.
Where it's very heavy, very long.
But even
very,
even diplomacy, there's a lot going on in it where like I never felt like I had and I think we played it twice. I never felt like I had a good enough grasp on what was going to happen on the next turn that I could even remotely ever plan for what I thought I needed to do.
Well, that's kind of that game.
Yeah.
Well, and me and Daniel are good at it because we see all the possibilities. We sit there and say, okay, these are all the options. This is the best one, so we're gonna would be the benefit of that player the most. So we try to counteract it as best we can, or convince that person that that's not the best plan.
No, I mean, it was cool that there was a lot of asymmetrical stuff, because I love a good asymmetrical war game, which is like Root. Root is an excellent asymmetrical war game.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
But also, like I would like to try Twilight Imperium at some point. I would like to carve out enough time with some people who are serious enough about sitting down and playing an intensely long
See, I don't know
game.
much about that one. I know it's one of those big
ones. You got
to
carve out an afternoon,
Yeah.
And a morning.
Yeah.
It's huge. It takes 6 to 8 hours to play.
Yeah. See, a full diplomacy game is that way.
Yeah, right.
And you've never played an actual diplomacy game. You've played
Just
the digital
online,
one, which is different.
Yeah.
It's different enough. The online one was fun, and it's kind for playing over a long period of time, and it worked pretty good. But it does capture a little bit of what the real game is like. But when you're all in the same room, actually arguing in a time frame like, oh, we got to make a plan, it changes it. And I would love to do another one. It's just hard to convince 7 players to spend the entire day playing a game where you might get angry at each other by the end of it and hate each other. And there's some grudges that have come out of the game. And
like Star Trek Catan, I don't like.
Yeah,
it's cute.
It's
cute, but it messes
fine.
with the. It messes with the base mechanics of the game a little too much.
It was. I thought it brought a little bit of an extra tweak on it, but it's one of those I've only played it twice, and then I didn't really feel the need to play it again.
Yeah,
and I'm kind of that way with Catan as well. I've kind of played it out enough to where I'm like, it doesn't change enough from one game to another that it not to keep my interest.
I've played it so many times because it was a family favorite of Brandy's family, and every time we go up there, her mom would want to play Catan, so we'd play it. Yeah,
well, I did too. It was really one of the first real Euro board game. It's kind of a Euro board game.
It is Euro board game.
That I got into, because before that I liked board games, but I've played all the American, what they call American trash, the Monopoly and all those games. I played the crap out of those a lot, but Catan was the first introduction, and for a lot of people, it's one of the first widely played games where it's not just Monopoly, but it's one of those things I played a lot, and I got into it, but then we played it so much I kind of got burned out on it. Last time I played it was with y'all. Y'all invited me.
We were at the coffee shop.
I went to the coffee shop and played, and I hadn't played it in several years since then. And I get the appeal of it, and it's fun, but it's also one of those that hinges on luck, and I kind of gotten to where I don't care for games that do that too much. Where it's heavily balanced on, if you have good dice rolls, you're going to do better, and sometimes you can't do anything about that.
But as far as a themed property
it's
tie-in
good.
game,
Yeah, it's a solid game for sure.
And it works also because the themed property it's tying into is a card game in the world that it's tying into. So it works really nice. And a lot of the, I haven't seen all the Adventure Time episodes because I've never sat down with
it's a lot of them.
A disc or anything. I think I've seen all of the first season.
Oh, really? That's nothing.
But
I mean,
I know. But back when it was on Netflix there for a while, I would watch it while I was doing my my trainer rides inside the house on my bike in the winter, and so I went through the first season, and I think that was all that was on Netflix for a while.
You can, I think,
but
all
that
of
was
it's on
years
Hulu
ago.
now.
That was years
I
ago.
think.
Yeah. And then we bought a couple of DVDs for Cater to watch, and they're not full season DVDs. They're
collection kind of
they're
thing.
just so I've seen a lot of those. And then he is driving. My son and I have very fundamental differences in the way we like to consume media, but he will get on YouTube and go to the Cartoon Network channel, and they've got clips, and he has figured out some way where he can find the clips in order and watch an entire episode.
Well, there's probably some. I wouldn't be surprised. There's people that just make playlists that just puts all the clips together like that.
But he doesn't do that. He just he'll watch. He won't even put them in order most of the time. He'll just go down the list, and so he'll watch the beginning of one episode and the end of another one, and he's fine. Because he's just watching the jokes. He doesn't need to see the completed story arc. And I'm like, oh, I don't.
The thing is, Adventure Time, the episodes are only 10 to 12 minutes. They're short.
So he'll watch like 3 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
Or 4 minutes. They'll get in a couple of solid jokes, and they'll end on like a big bit, but they won't show you what happens later.
Yeah.
But so he has seen all of these episodes, but he's seen them in the strangest order.
Yeah. He probably has no idea the grand scope.
But he does, because we have he's seen full episodes.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about like the entire series gets wild.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's wild, that show. Like, I was like, I don't know how they come up with this stuff, the writers on this show, because it's just off the wall. Like, they're on something to come up with the ideas. And it's really, I love it because it has these really dark, like, if you're adult watching it, you're like, oh, that's kind of a weird. Is that appropriate for children? But then the kids watch it and they go, that's funny, and they don't get it. And you're just like, there's some crazy stuff in it, and really clever, like weird, like curse words in it, like
math.
Math is genius. Because math is a curse word to kids, and I'm like, that's so clever. But it gets wild, and it gets really trippy toward later. And I've seen most of the show except for like the last half of the last season, or maybe just the last season. I'm not sure. And it's just a trippy show, and I really like it.
Yeah. Well, I recommend the card game. I'll bring it over. We'll play it, and then you can talk about it.
Yeah, definitely.
At some point.
Get a first round.
While we still got time, I'd like to talk about a game that I talked about 2 weeks ago with Dan.
Okay.
I backed on Kickstarter. No one wants to hear someone in a podcast say, I backed a game on Kickstarter.
Yeah, because I'm in a board game group, and everyone says that all the time. And I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah. They got me, though. And, like, you get inundated with Kickstarter ads for board games if the internet finds out that you like board games. You just get them everywhere. But this one caught me because it's filmmaking.
Okay.
And I've seen
filmmaking.
I've seen filmmaking board games before, and I'm like,
a lot of them are trivia based.
Yeah. No.
We have a mutual friend that's friends with a guy who made a cinema based card game.
Right.
I've never played it, but
this one's called Roll Camera. The designer is Mal Rimpin, who he's run one other successful Kickstarter board game campaign for a card game called Itchy Feet, which is like a
what's it called?
Itchy Feet.
Itchy Feet.
It was designed to be a game to play with other people that you meet while you're traveling.
Okay.
But it's just a little card game, and like you're trying to visit these landmark places in different countries on the cards. But he also in the corners he put the actual usual 52 deck.
So you can use that.
So you can play regular cards with it if you want, or you can play his game. Neat little guy, neat little mechanic extra thing that he built in there, and he got ambitious with this one. He's also a cartoonist and animator and filmmaker guy. So he's made movies, so he gets it right, because not everyone who makes a movie game has made movies.
Well, it's just there's the line where it's like the people who make movies and then the people who consume movies that think they know all about making movies.
Okay. This guy understands the inner workings, which I understand the inner workings. Yeah, you understand the inner workings, right?
We had those degrees, yeah.
Right. And I worked for years professionally, and still technically do in production, though I work for an organization and not freelance. But he understands the weird give and take between the different departments and pre-production and how a script gets made, and he made a board game about doing that. And it is a dice rolling, dice worker placement game. So when you roll the dice,
you get the numbers, you place them.
You get symbols. There's a camera symbol, there's a light symbol, there's an audio symbol, there's a stunt symbol, there's a there's an actor symbol, there's a VFX symbol. And
so I can already see where this goes.
Yeah, so you roll the dice. You've got a script. The script is 2 cards. You put down, you shuffle a deck, and you put down 1 card, and that's the first half of the title. And you draw from the other deck, and you put down, and you get the second half of the title. And each title ties to a different genre, or maybe it ties to the same genre. You shuffled them. You don't know. Yeah. So you might get something that's like Codename Grandma, something silly like that. And so, but Codename is like, it's action film, so you got to get action scenes, which are coded this one color in the deck. And then Grandma's like, it's a sentimental film, you got to get sentimental scenes. And it kind of dictates the scenes that you've got to get out of this other deck. But then you draw those scenes, and they require certain worker placement to complete.
To make them, because they're,
Right. So then you've got to roll the dice, and then you've got to put the worker placement, but then you've got set cards. And the set cards have different positions for different places for the dice to go.
Okay.
And then you're passing around a clipboard, and the clipboard has, on one side, it has a track of money, and the other side has a track of time. And
I already want to play this.
Yeah,
It sounds really interesting, especially from my film background. I don't know if it's interesting to anybody else.
Yeah,
but
I think because I've read the rule book. I've watched a couple of people like playing some of the prototypes.
Yeah.
It looks really fun, and it looked like for a very specific audience.
Yeah, like I can see us enjoying it a lot, and all of our film buddies and everything.
Everyone gets a particular player board. You could be the director, the production designer, the director of photography, the editor.
Yeah.
And then you have to do all this stuff, but you have to come in on time and under budget.
Of course.
If you lose money or you lose out on time, the game's over. You lose. It's a cooperative game. You're all trying to complete the film.
Okay. Yeah.
And then when you complete the film, every scene that you shoot has certain quality points. If you get enough quality points, your little quality marker moves up. The goal of the game
to have a quality
is
film.
To get out of the red zone on quality and at least get to watchable. Now, maybe you get all the way to cinematic masterpiece, but maybe you don't. But as long as you get to watchable, you've won. Now, if you can tell you're not getting enough quality points, you can tank it and go the other way to so bad it's good.
Yeah,
and get out of the red zone that way.
The cult, the room kind of thing where it's real bad but good.
So I talked about this a lot with Dan.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about his Kickstarter campaign because he did a really cool Kickstarter campaign. He only had one stretch goal, and I'm doing air quotes. It was an official stretch goal, and that was if he got $100,000, he would make the board, the box for the board game have an actual clapper on it.
Oh God!
So
that's so dumb.
I know, but that's the only stretch goal.
That's not complicated.
No,
that's
it's
nice.
not. And he had a prototype. He's like, I talked to the box company, they can do it. Here's what it would look like. He had it was just solid white. He's like, look, it works. It's sturdy. It's not going to fall apart. The box company says they can do it, but it's only because of the added cost. It would only be worth it for everybody if we can get to $100,000. He's like, otherwise, we just get a normal box. Still looks good.
Yeah.
The game will be the same.
Yeah. So true. That's
but,
funny.
I mean, the game was funded. He asked for a pretty low amount of money.
Most of the time they do.
Yeah. And it was funded in like 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah. A lot of those board games, just like they know that as long as they get so many people buying into it, it'll be worth the cost. Because
so he did the math, but he made it to $100,000. So that is actually going to be
nice
the thing. Everyone will get a clapper box, and it's silly.
It is,
but
silly.
like it'll actually be the thing that opens up. So you open up the clapper and take everything out.
Yeah. And then it.
But
I'm gonna have to look this up and see what it looks like.
But
it sounds ridiculous.
In the game itself, or in the Kickstarter campaign itself, in the game you are laying out cards of scenes, and the order that you lay them out in means something. And each scene has, I don't know if you've ever played story cubes or story cards, and it's a free form like conversation starter type of game. You roll the dice, and there's different symbols, and you make a story out of it.
Yeah.
And you pass it to the next person who adds on to the story. So it's kind of like Exquisite Corpse or something like that, where you're kind of doing the same thing with the scene cards. Well, he took that mechanic and put it into the Kickstarter campaign. Every day he sent out an email that had 3 choices for 3 different scenes. He's like, everyone vote on the scene we should shoot next. And every scene was tied to a little upgrade for the game.
Yeah.
And
I've seen some stuff where
sometimes
they
they
did something
were like physical upgrades. Like if you guys would like, if you want thicker cards, if you want linen finish cards,
Yeah.
vote for this one. If you want a wooden quality marker, vote for this one. If you want me to come up with 5 new script cards for each top half and bottom half of the deck, vote for this one.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. Most things went for expanding the gameplay,
Yeah.
and then went for quality items, and then like dead last, people didn't really care about necessarily getting like UV spot colors on the box.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Stuff that's kind of trivial. Yeah, it's interesting that it's kind of become a trend I've noticed a little bit with Kickstarter games. Like the Trial by Trolley did something similar, where they used the theme of the game to make decisions.
Yeah.
The trolley problem. So the people, okay, we've reached this goal. Let's pick which side of the track we go on, and depending on which side would have risk and reward. So it was actually sometimes took stuff away from the game. They're like, oh, well, you went this way, you got this, but we took out 5 cards and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's kind of clever. So he's got a game built into and it encourages people to interact and make choices that affect the game, and then also gets more people to back it because it's usually entertaining.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, we ended up having 30 scenes worth of a movie because he did 5 every week.
Yeah.
I think he took weekends off of like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, or maybe it was just 25. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a whole row of scenes, and it had like, they were random, but they made a complete story, and it's like some people were being betrayed, and there was some violence, and there was a love theme, and at the end they had a baby,
which fixes everything.
Yeah. It was fun, and it was good, and
what's the game called?
It's called Roll Camera.
Roll Camera. Okay, I knew you said it earlier, but I wanted to refresh.
The Kickstarter finished
a little bit ago.
2 days ago, a day ago. I don't know if you can still get in technically. If you want a copy of it, let me know, and I can add a copy to mine.
Okay, I'll have to go look at it. I might hit you up on that, depending on the entry cost.
But they got the board. They voted for a thicker board. They voted for linen finish cards and thicker tokens, nicer and stuff. Wooden stuff, and then also like additional cards. So there's like 15 more cards in one deck, and another 10 cards in another deck that weren't there. So.
Sounds interesting. I'll have to look it up, and I'll let you know. But if you have a copy, we'll just play your copy. Well, we've already gone over. But there's at least one thing I want to talk about in news related before we go. And that is Rocksteady. You familiar with Rocksteady? They did the Arkham, Batman Arkham games. Okay. So Arkham.
Yeah, I played the first one.
Yeah, Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and Arkham Knight were the 3. They did those 3, and then Arkham Origin was done by another studio, but within Warner Brothers. But they've announced their next game they've been working on for several years, and it was rumored that people thought it was going to be a Superman game, which they said wasn't true. But they've actually announced what it is with a poster, and it's a Suicide Squad game, which I'm kind of like, whatever. But the part that caught my attention was the poster is a poster of Superman with the Suicide Squad title target on his head. So apparently the whole story is that the Suicide Squad is going after the Justice League. And it sounds like a dumb idea. No, not. I'm talking about as far as the Suicide. Like the concept is good. Like I'm curious how they'll deliver that, because I like the Arkham games. I like the stories of them, and that's why I like the company and I think they would do a good job making the game. So I'm curious, how do you make that work where you have a team of villains that you're playing fight someone like Superman?
I think it works better doing it that way than it does playing Superman.
I agree,
fight a bunch of villains.
Because Superman games tend to not be very good because you're so overpowered, and it's hard to make that interesting. And it's kind of the same thing in the comics as well.
Probably the Superman game that gets or well, it's not actually a Superman game. It's a Batman game, but Lego Batman.
There's 3 of
2
them.
or
There's
3.
Yeah. The
Where you can
third
play
one
Superman.
is the space one. I know that much.
It might be 3. You can play Superman and you can play Wonder Woman, and as soon as you unlock them, you completely break the game. And that's fine, because you should break the game with Superman.
Yeah.
But like, you can fly anywhere you want. You can pretty much open any door you want with your heat vision.
Yeah.
There's a couple things that you can't do that you need to like pull someone else in for, but you end up pulling in like Green Lantern or whatever, and he does
You can also do it just about anything.
but like being able to fly in the Lego games, just like you win whatever you want to win.
Yeah.
You go wherever you want, unless it's behind like a specific door, which kryptonite doors, you can't deal with kryptonite.
Okay.
So you got to get someone else who can deal with kryptonite. But yeah, but it's like, why?
Superman notoriously is difficult to work with because he's become so overpowered, and most of the more interesting stories deal with those,
But being a villain
small-
fighting against that,
It
right?
sounds terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, you imagine going up against Superman, and,
But he's got his major weakness is
It's
that
moral.
he's
he
a
won't
good guy.
kill and all
He's
that
a good
stuff.
guy, right?
So that kind of...
So you can keep getting locked into Arkham and keep busting out, and you know he's never going to kill you.
Yeah, I'm curious what the play style is going to be like with the team instead of being Batman. And I mean, you play a few other characters and side stuff in the game, but you don't. Mostly, you play one character, and I'm curious what it will be like mechanically. But I am curious, and we'll probably find out more at the end of the month with the DC fandom thing they're doing. It's a live streaming 24-hour thing, so I think it's August 22nd, something like that. So we'll probably hopefully see some footage of it, but I'm curious to see what it's going to be, because the concept intrigues me, and I like the game company and I like their games, so I'm going to keep an eye on it, and hopefully they'll put out a good game. I like all their other games, so we'll see. I had other stuff, but we don't have time.
All right.
Because we spent so much time talking about magic and other things.
Well, now you can talk about
Dude,
Carrion updates Switch icon to
Oh,
look
yeah,
like
yeah.
a gaping vagina.
yeah.
You really shouldn't have passed this paper over to me.
So Carrion is a game where you play, I don't know if you're aware, but Daniel's been playing it. It's a game where you play a basically blob thing going around somewhere, just absorbing, slaughtering people.
Yeah.
You're playing the alien that is attacking all the Marines, kind of thing. And it's a side-scroller platformer game. But the Switch icon on the game is this red gaping hole thing that looks like a vagina. They recently changed it.
It's not a vagina. It's the Predator with his mask off.
Kind of, but this... Yeah, it's along that line. Maybe less horrifying as that, because you don't have the teeth. But yeah, you should go look it up, because it was a pretty funny thing. Daniel pointed out to me. I don't know if we talked about it on the show or not, but he did point and go, yeah, it looks like a vagina. Just opened up right there on your Switch, and it makes and in fact an article a week or two ago talked about it, blurred it out, just censored it. Yeah, it does look like that. And but they changed it, so no longer.
I wonder if they'll get like a bunch of gamer nerds like boycotting them because they want the old one back. Because that happens. That happens when
they're calling for the director's cut of Carrie.
Yeah. Bring back the.
Well, Warner Brothers is doing it with the Snyder cut. It might work. Who knows? I hope not. There's probably a small percentage that liked it and wanted it to come back, but they want to put an option so you can switch between them or some bullshit that no one cares about.
I demand my right to see an icon on my Switch that reminds me of a vagina.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a good episode title.
That's right there at the end. I forgot to keep notes for the title because I'm not used to doing that. So it's going to be an interesting one. Anyway, thank you very much for listening and hanging with us while Daniel's not been here, and our NPR-like episodes with Trey. And
are you on Twitter?
We are on Twitter. We are on with Twitter. You can find us at Dud and Dan, DUDNDAN.
That's the letter N.
Yes, the letter N. Same as the old, our old name. We have the letter N. But you can go to our website to find all our links and stuff at dudanddan.com or duddan.com for the time being until that runs out. We don't pay for it again.
You got less than a year.
2 years. I think it was a 2-year term.
He
so,
big.
So you got some time. And yeah, we're on all the social medias, so just go find us, and then you can also find our, my. Are you on? You're on those social medias. You want to plug any of your stuff?
Yeah, I guess you can check me out on Twitter at Treybucket. That's
Treybucket.
Trebuchet, but with a K. Trebucket.
Mm-hmm.
At Treybucket.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, that's good enough. Good enough.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I don't post a lot.
Yeah. I don't post a lot on Twitter either.
But I read all of your posts if you follow me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
If
you want
to
get attention,
relationship.
if you want to get some attention from Trey,
yeah.
go follow him on Twitter, and then
and I will roll my eyes constantly about what you are posting.
Good. Someone needs to.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for listening. I'm Dudley.
I'm Trey.
And this has been Dud and Dan.